Hey, thank you for joining us for our first Instagram Live here at City Church. We're going to give it a few minutes for others to join. My name is Leo Schuster, and I'm the lead pastor of City Church Houston. You can go to citychurch.org for our website. And thanks for joining, those of you that are joining. A couple of things. We have our services on Sunday at 10:30 a.m. That's Central Time. We're also going to start this Sunday showing our service at 5 p.m. Central. So you've got two options, 10:30 a.m., 5 p.m. Central Time. And again, citychurch.org is our website. So if you want to watch it, you can go there and you've got options there. You can see it directly through our website. You can have a more interactive experience, which is we really appreciate, either on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live. And I think one of the things that you're going to really enjoy is our music that we've got. They're called Civic Club. It's our collective of artists at City Church in Houston. Incredible music that you'll be seeing this Sunday. All right, why don't we start? So we thought this might be a really helpful thing for us to do, basically to have a conversation about the weird world that we currently inhabit. Can you believe this? It just seems like with every breaking news headline, with every notification that just keeps passing over your phone, that the only certainty is uncertainty. That there's just from the fears of contracting the coronavirus to economic fears, vocational anxiety. As a pastor, what I am concerned about increasingly, and there's a lot of mental health care professionals, frankly, that are talking about this, is that in addition to the pandemic that COVID-19 is, that there will be this tsunami of mental health care crisis that hits us. It'll be a mental health care pandemic, in essence, that follows in the wake of this. And you're already seeing this to some degree, but we want to talk a little bit about that. I am not a mental health care professional, but if you would like to connect with one, you can go right now to our website, citychurch.org. There's a form there that you just click on, and one of the questions on there, it also asks you how we can be praying for you, how we can help you connect virtually with small groups of individuals through Zoom. But you can let us know you'd like to connect virtually with a mental health care professional, and we'll help you do that. But as a pastor, some of the questions that I'm dealing with, I'm processing. Some of you have sent these questions in, and I'll do my best. If you want to DM questions during this time, I'll do my best to get to those as well. But we're just going to go through some of those questions. So the first one has to do with work. This is how it was submitted to me. Some people feel overwhelmed by work in its new form, and their jobs seem to be expanding as changes are made to routines. Others are bored stiff. Is that how you feel? Because they don't have enough to do. You know, there's only so much time to play games on your phone and watch Netflix. Others are feeling, on the other end of the spectrum, a loss of work. Maybe they went from full employment to now this sense of what it's like to be underemployed. Others of you are dealing with the loss of your work altogether, or you feel like you're edging toward this cliff where you're wondering, am I going to lose my job? What are you going to do about that? And so there's quite a spectrum there. First of all, to those of you that are dealing with anxiety related to work, not just boredom, I really hurt for you, and I'm so sorry. On the boredom, before we go to that, someone texted me earlier in the week this, and I thought it was apropos. It said, to put things in perspective, for those of us feeling a bit stir crazy already, Anne Frank, and you'll remember she was a young Jewish woman who had to go into hiding when the Nazis occupied Holland. So Anne Frank and 7 other people hid in a 450 square foot attic for 761 days, quietly trying to remain undiscovered to stay alive. We can all do our part to keep everyone safe and spend a few weeks at home. So that puts it a little bit in perspective when we're just sitting here going, oh gosh, what am I going to do next? I'm a little bored. But back to those of you that are dealing more with anxiety, I like to talk at City Church about a theology of work. That is, God is actually very concerned about our work. And if you would describe yourself as a Christian, it's not just that you do overtly spiritual things that make your work spiritual. It's that actually our work is a divine calling. Regardless of what you do, as long as it's a legitimate vocation, so Tony Soprano, I'm not talking to you here, as long as it's a legitimate vocation, it is holy. We got to get rid of this sacred secular dichotomy in work. I'm not the only one that has a holy calling. Any vocation is holy. And I saw a statistic recently that only 35% of people globally actually find deep meaning and significance in their work. Maybe one of the silver linings of this grand disruption vocationally that we're enduring is that it will help us to discover more meaning in our work. Either that may mean for some of you moving to a new career, a new job, or just reimagining your work. And that's something all of us can do by seeing it as a calling by God to co-labor with Him in loving the world through what you do, serving people, and in doing that, serving the Lord. There's so much that we could talk about here, but look, I think we have to be careful when we're thinking about all of these issues that we steer clear either on the one hand of what I'd call a kind of a pietistic platitude based on spirituality. It's everything's going to be okay because God's in control. Or on the other hand, apocalyptic doom. This is surely signs of the book of Revelation that the world is coming to an end. I'm going to actually, if we do this, and I think we're going to a week from today, I'm going to be talking more about that. Next Sunday a week is Palm Sunday, talking about Jesus as King. So we're going to talk about what does it mean for God to be in control, and one aspect of that is this idea that this represents the great apocalypse. Okay, I'm not saying that, by the way. So we got to steer clear of pietistic platitudes and apocalyptic doom and realize this is an opportunity to reimagine our work. And it may mean you have to go sometime unemployed or underemployed, and I'm so sorry about that. But in this time where kind of some of the things that we put confidence in have been stripped away, we come to see that our true identity is not in our work. We're not okay because of what we do or don't do. We're okay because of who we are as children of God, and again, as a Christian, we'd say it as someone who is in Jesus. That's where our basic identity comes from. And if you put your identity there, then your work or lack of work won't crush you, because your foundation is in who God is and that He has called you to Himself. So that's my best first take on the work question. Let's move on to another one. What about financial fears? Oh my goodness. I mean, if it's not bad enough, every news flash about the coronavirus, it's seeing the news flashes about what's going on Wall Street. And it just feels sort of like a whiplash experience, right? I mean, one day it's up, next day it's crashing to a new low. What are we to make sense of this? And of course, if you're in Houston watching, welcome to all Houstonians. But, we're the energy capital of the world, and there's a whole nother layer of this anxiety because of what's happening with the oil market right now. Things that we can't control. So what are we supposed to do with these financial fears? Well, obviously I'm not a financial advisor, but I do think the Bible teaches us a lot on this. Jesus, for instance, spoke more about money than he did any other subject other than his kingdom, which we're going to get into again next week. But, Jesus wanted us not to be mastered by money because it's a really terrible master. So in the Sermon on the Mount, the most famous sermon ever preached, no doubt, Jesus said, don't worry about money. We're going to say, well, it's easy to do. It feels kind of like a pious platitude, but no. He dug down very deep, and he actually went to the root of it in our hearts and said, look, the reason that you don't need to worry about money is because you are never to be mastered by it, because it is a poor master. We were designed to give our deepest love and loyalty to God and God alone. And whenever we invest too deeply in something else, it can be anything else. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, but we can make anything, like our careers, like our values in the stock market. We can make something that's good, an ultimate thing, and in so doing, we turn it into a master. And those become horrible, warlord-type masters. So instead, he said, serve God. Seek first his kingdom, and you'll find that everything else fits into place. A lot more that could be said there. Let's move on. What about being more socially isolated? So I've been reading a lot the last couple of weeks about this. One piece I just read yesterday, Robin Wright, who's written for years for The New Yorker, 2 days ago wrote an article, and she said this. She said, the novel coronavirus has swept the globe at a time when more people are living alone than ever before. I live alone, she said, and have no family, and usually don't think much about it. But as the new pathogen forces us to socially distance, I've begun to feel lonely. I miss the ability to see, converse with, hug, or spend time with friends. Life seems shallower, more like survival than living. Can you relate to that? Of course you can. And some of you are feeling it profoundly because I've either talked to you or received texts or heard second or third hand. And again, my heart really goes out to you. At City Church, we want to help people connect. While we're socially isolated, the way I want to think about it is that we're physically isolated, but we don't need to be socially isolated. And so there's fantastic opportunities through small group connections using technology that's at our disposal to connect with people. And I've had fun just this week doing that in several different contexts. So we'd love to help you do that, citychurch.org. But what are we to make of that kind of social isolation when we feel it? What are we supposed to do with that? I think it has to do with being in touch with our feelings, being self-aware with the loneliness that we feel. And in terms of the intersection of the Bible with this, realizing that God didn't just shout to us from a distance in heaven and say, hey, cheer up, don't be so gloomy. But instead, he took on the clothes of humanity and entered into our broken world where the contagion of sin had gone viral. And he inhabited that world in his son, Jesus, so that we know that God is right here with us, regardless of how socially isolated you may be or feel that you are. What the Bible teaches us is that God is right there in the person of his Son. And if you welcome him into your life, and give yourself to him as Savior and Lord, then he actually, by his Spirit, and this may sound really difficult to get your mind around for some of you, but he actually comes to live inside of you, and you become one with him. There's a deep intimacy. So this is a little bit of a tease to what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday in our services. Again, 10:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to be talking about how God is with us in a very intimate way, and that is the greatest antidote that I know of to dealing with the anxiety of loneliness. Some of us are realizing that as we're living with our family or with friends, spending gobs more time than we ever dreamed we would, there's a lot more tension. Any of you realizing this? One of the things that I think that we should do when we find conflict, maybe that really wasn't there, is to realize that it's telling us something, to listen. And I have a friend who's a therapist. I saw a post on Facebook. I didn't get her permission, so I'm not going to give her name on this. But what she said was, use it as an opportunity to be kind. Plato, this is me, but Plato said, be kind, everyone is fighting a great battle. We really don't know what everyone's going through, but actually right now we know a lot of what we're all going through. Why can't we just show grace and compassion to one another? So she said, show grace, compassion, and understanding. Work on not filtering people through a critical lens. Try adopting the concept of radical acceptance. Accepting people right as they are. I'm a preacher. I'm trained to do this. I'm trained to talk. I'm trained to talk. I'm a terrible listener. But we all need to use this as an opportunity to listen far better than we ordinarily do because we're so close to one another. A lot of people are. Okay, now all of this, everything we've talked about thus far, feeds into the final question that I want to think about with you for just a couple of minutes, and that is, what does it look like to have a healthy spirituality in this kind of new context of uncertainty, where anxiety just rears its head? Well, again, this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday at 10:30 a.m., 5 p.m. Central Time, citychurch.org. But here's what I'd say. Anxiety comes at us like a bully, constantly to our psyche, that keeps us at a high level of stress and tension. And how do you stand down the bully? You realize that there is a far greater voice we have accessible to us. The voice that we have in the ancient scriptures. We have the novel coronavirus that just breeds chaos and catastrophe. But the ancient voice, there's nothing novel about God. The ancient voice of who God is in the scriptures comes to us and speaks into our life. We need to let the Bible speak to us. And I think a great place to start is the book of Psalms in terms of dealing with anxiety, because so many of the Psalms are people doing this very thing. They're going before God. They're being honest with him. That's what healthy spirituality looks. It's not pasting on emotions, pretending like you have to figure yourself out and be some way for God to accept you or listen to you. It's coming to God exactly as you are. If you are lonely, cry out to God. Tell him that. And a psalm like Psalm 13, for instance, or Psalm 40, Psalm 63, these are all great places to go to make your own emotions more expressive to God. And so it's getting in touch with your feelings, paying attention to your emotions, being open with God, raw. How can we do this? Look, we are inundated. What's triggering all the anxiety in us? It's that we're inundated with horrible news constantly, constant stream of it. But what Christianity does is it comes to us and says, no, Christianity is fundamentally about overwhelmingly good news. It's where the word gospel comes from. It literally means good news. Christianity is saying, here's the overwhelmingly good news of who God is for you in his Son, Jesus Christ. And learning to read the Bible, whether it's Old Testament books like Psalms or the New Testament, as designed to point us to Jesus, to show us that being spiritual isn't about being a good person. That's ethics and morals. Christianity is saying, God meets you exactly where you are. Come to him as you are. You don't have to clean yourself up or change your emotional condition. Come to him as you are. And realize that the good news of that Jesus lived the life you could never live, died the death that you deserve, and rose that you might enjoy the hope of new life that will one day come fully into existence when we enter into his eternal presence. But now we have approximately through faith in his Son. It's that good news that doesn't paste over everything. You're living still with that difficult news, but it isn't the final word, that ugly news. It's the beautiful news of who God is for you in Jesus that is the last and final word. So Psalm 13 begins with, "How long, O Lord?" Even wondering if God has forgotten him. But as the psalmist journeys to its conclusion, he is coming to the place where he can experience the love of God for him. And that's someone who was grappling with all this before Jesus ever came. We have the perspective of hindsight, of looking back at what Jesus has already done for us, realizing, oh my goodness, God has so loved me. Let that cheer your heart. Well, those are just some questions to help us begin to process these things. Again, if you'd like to talk further with a mental health professional, if you'd like to share with us a prayer request, if you'd like to be connected better with other people in a digital way through Zoom in a small group, then go to citychurch.org and complete the form. There's a button right there on the landing page. And join us this Sunday, 10:30 a.m., 5 p.m. Central Time, citychurch.org. Thank you so much for joining us for our inaugural Instagram Live.